Identify and book the world's best speakers for your next event. MENA Speakers is the leading speakers and MC bureau in the Middle East. We bring global talent to the region and have established the region as a key global hub for speakers. Inspire and motivate your audience. Find exactly what you are looking for by working closely with us to assist you in understanding the cost-benefit analysis tied to selecting a speaker for any event. Ensure that your audience is educated, engaged, and empowered. Connect with us for a quick response and tailored advice. Book your speakers now.
Get those managers developed throughout your organization, having them understand exactly what engagement is about, the role they play in the whole engagement scheme. It's not just the organization that comes back and our scores were very low. Well, that comes back down to every manager. Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. Welcome to the CEO series. If it's Friday, it's the CEO series. Our guest today is Sarah Tabet. She is the Global HR Director for Schneider Electric, and she heads up the diversity and inclusion area. She provides executive support, executive coaching, business partnership to senior leaders in multiple geographies across the globe, specifically Europe, US, India, and China. She's a frequent speaker at regional and local conferences and has been featured in several publications related to HR, personal development, and D&I topics. To reinforce the message on DEI even further, she recently published her first book, Inclusion Starts With You. And I think this is probably the first anniversary of that book. So Sarah, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Ron. Good morning and good afternoon. And also for those who are joining from the Middle East or anywhere in Asia, it's also afternoon for them. Happy to be here with you today.
Thank you so much. So tell us about the book. Tell us, what was the drive to write a book as it relates to this topic, which is a hot topic today?
Absolutely. So the book, actually, as you mentioned, it's our first anniversary, and I'm so excited because I actually celebrated that in the expo in Dubai. You know, now expo is happening. It's really the time to be in Dubai, and we celebrated, you know, the first year of launch. The reason why I published the book, Ron, is simple. DEI is a super important topic, not only for corporates, not only for individuals, leaders, but it's really a topic that touches our social and even communities. And I realized at one point, working in this D&I space, that many people have a misunderstanding. They think that it's only related to women. They think that it's only could be related to maybe a disability, but they don't know that actually it touches each and every aspect of our lives. It starts with respecting people's differences, and we as individuals, regardless of where we are, can be inclusive people. And this is why I thought, you know, it's important to write the book to clarify what does it mean when we say DE&I, and then how can we be inclusive people, not necessarily only in corporate.
Mm-hmm. So that's the hot topic. So the initials DEI, every place you look inside of corporate communication, companies are spouting DEI. What is how does an organization should be able to guide that process of building up some kind of DEI strategy? You just can't use buzzwords and say we're doing all these things. What should the infrastructure look like?
Absolutely. So it's funny you ask the question. It's a super good question because many people actually, companies, want to do so much. They want to advocate. We are a company that believes in diversity, equity, and inclusion. But then when you ask them what they are actually doing, this is where you realize, like, We don't know. We just know that we want to be seen as an, advocates of DE&I, but reality is we don't know where to start, and it's fair. It's a fair point. If you want to start, you really need to incorporate DE&I in everything you do. It's not one thing. It's not HR who should drive. It's not only CEOs of companies who should drive. It's an activity or an initiatives or a change management in every aspect of our business, in our policies, in our behaviors, in our mindset of employees. So it really touches each and every aspect of our workforce and future growth.
So if that's connected for the non-HR audience, that possibly could be called a talent management framework. So every aspect, that could be learning and development, that could be compensation, that could be talent acquisition. In other words, embed that process into each one of those categories of that framework.
Yeah, and again, now more and more we know that talent management and every aspect of HR is not only driven by HR, because we know now hiring managers play a very important role in choosing candidates, in promoting, in assessing the performance. So this is why I'm saying it doesn't have to be led by HR. It's not only an HR topic. It's really how we take decisions at every level.
So I'm glad you mentioned that it's not an HR topic, because lots of times, I follow, as well as you do, you follow HR groups and somebody's putting together, I'm putting together DEI policy. Can someone share me their profile or whatever it is? And I'm thinking, it's not just about the HR people, it's the entire organization.
It's not wrong. When you talk about DEI, you talk a lot about stereotyping, right? Biases. And this is something that touches each and every one of us. When you meet someone, and you meet someone, you make decisions, you take, your mind makes shortcuts. And then again, this is where you decide on people's potentials, you decide on, if you like the person or not. And those are really linked to how our mind works and kind of the stereotypes and the biases that we have naturally. So that's why it's an individual topic.
So if for the CEOs or senior leaders that's listening to this call, what would you advise them, or how would you advise them to tackle this DEI topic and embed that in their organization? What would be your message to the C-suite? In other words, the business case behind it.
Yeah, I think that very important is budget, because DEI is not a luxury. They have to, if they really believe in the cause of building or incorporating diversity, equity, and inclusion in their organization, they have to be serious about it. And being serious about it, when you go and ask for a headcount or you ask for budget to do some initiatives around this, or to change policies, or to put a team that would really like change agents, you need to invest in that. And this is only when you know how important this topic would be on the agenda, is when you see CEOs and C-level executives are really believing and open to investing money, resource into that process. So serious.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, be serious about the topic, and then it has to become part of the core values. It's not again a nice to have. Like when you say we are really a company that believes in DE&I, it has to be seen at every level. As you said, the hiring processes, the way that we attract employees, the way that we promote, the way that we our tools. Are they inclusive in a nature where also we accept people with disabilities, our workplace environment? So it really touches at every level of diversity. And this is where they have to start assessing each and every aspect of their workplace.
So where did this passion come from? How did you become so ingrained in thinking through the DEI? Was there a trigger at a certain point in your career that said, you know what, I want to focus on this a little more?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, I need to say, in the Middle East, this topic is relatively newer
Yeah,
than
yeah,
I go to the US sometimes. I talk to people in some corporations. They started the journey 15 years ago. For us
yeah.
in the Middle East, it's something relatively new. So 5 years ago, um, being in Dubai, working for Schneider Electric, I raised the hand and said, I really want to be part of the global team, the NI team, to learn more about this topic. And
Mm,
actually, funny enough, I also thought it was only about bringing more women on board. I thought, I thought it was really about, gender balance. And then when I started really working on this with the global team and building kind of ambassadors in across Middle East and Africa, I realized that actually it's not about ticking the boxes on few KPIs. It's we started talking about like family leave policies. We started talking about flexibility at work, which was even before COVID,
COVID.
even
Yeah.
before COVID. And this is where you realize that actually this topic is about being unique and accepting or giving the space for people to be unique, show their uniqueness without fear of being judged.
Yes.
It starts with respecting people regardless of their differences.
Mm. So
And yeah, and personally, Ron, also personally being again a career-oriented woman in the Middle East, someone who really is so passionate and wants to thrive and grow. I felt at many points in time that I was judged for example, for not being married at a young age, or having children, or fitting into what society would expect me to do at certain ages. This
yeah.
is where I felt, it resonates with my story. And I write it in the first chapter of my book because I really wanted to tell people that it is a topic that touches each and every one of us, and
Mm,
everybody has his own story.
mm. So it's I laugh when you talked about checking the boxes because and this is just my personal opinion. When I look at a lot of companies and they spout DEI at every touch point, they're talking about it. They're just clicking the boxes. Because I saw I called one CEO out because she had was talking about this mission she had and to do this and to do that. And I know in past points in her career that she did not do that and she did not. And I said, you know what? It's great that you're walking through these things, but when you put yourself out there, people are going to judge that. So they're going to look at your leadership team. They're going to look at the way that you're hiring people. They're going to look at reviews and all these kinds of things. So I was glad you mentioned the point that it's not just about checking the boxes, but it's you can check the box, but the box has to be effective and you have to carry it out. Is that
Yes, yes, 100%. And funnily enough, even you feel the pressure now. Since I launched the book, since I started talking more about this, even people around me, like they expect from me to be, even to when they say like sometimes seemingly, jokes that could be sometimes, based on stereotypes or biases or racism. They look at me as if, they're gonna be punished now. So people around you even start, yeah. So you're always
yeah.
under pressure to show to be a role model. That's true.
Yeah, so the DEI police, so that's the badge there that says, "Oh, we got to be careful because Sarah's in the room."
Around her, everything is
Yeah.
about inclusion when it comes to Sarah.
Oh
Absolutely.
my goodness. Yeah. So you mentioned gender balance. So I do sessions all over the globe, and I ask that question sometimes. What is your gender strategy? What is your gender balance strategy? And some companies will say, here is ours, 70-30, 70-50-50, whatever it is. And some people on the call, they don't have anything, but they're consistently pushing a DEI approach.
Yeah.
And even something as simple as that, they don't have any kind of KPI that says, here's how we're going to measure that. So how do you
Mm.
measure your
Mm.
DEI effectiveness? Because we can all put together a program and all these things we're going to do, touching on all of the TM strategy, but measurement should count, correct?
Absolutely, yes. And you are right. And it's tricky, to be fair. There are some KPIs, straightforward KPIs. When you talk about, ticking the boxes on diversity is easy, because diversity is when you say, okay, as an organization, I want to make sure that my workforce is diverse. They are not people coming from the same background, same nationality, same gender, same. So it's easy for organization to set KPIs and accordingly even mandate to those KPIs. Unfortunately, it is still mandatory at this stage because it's not our human nature. So yes, we put some KPIs to measure how the improvement on diversity, regardless of what form of diversity it is: disability, LGBTQ, social sexual orientation, nationality, generation, gender, and so on. But then, Ron, the question would be, how do you measure inclusion? Because diversity, if you tick the boxes on yes, having a diverse workforce, does it mean that it is an inclusive culture?
Hmm.
Absolutely not. One does not mean the other. They are complementary, yes, but one does not guarantee the other. And
Okay.
inclusion is where the deep change management is required. And deep change management is not a tick in the box, and it's not something that you're going to wake up the next day and see it change.
Yeah.
It's a
And it,
long term
yeah.
strategy because you're asking people to stop being biased in the
Yeah.
way that they take decisions. You're asking people to reconsider every time they make a decision, is it based on facts or assumptions? You're asking people to change their natural way of doing things, attracted to people who are similar to them from their same, city or country, speaking the same language. It's difficult. Now, it's like training. When we used to talk before about performance management, how you be a better coach as a leader, how can you create awareness sessions, but then it's really about practice, and it's really about reiterating the message further and further and further so that people can start rethinking, unlearning what they've learned before, and becoming inclusive. So,
Mm,
inclusive is a competency. Inclusive leadership is a competency that people have to build with time.
mm. Okay.
It's the
So let's take it back to, as we're trying to source people
Mhm,
and everyone is trying to hire people. I've
mhm,
always felt that one of the most important roles inside of an organization is that recruiting team. And that recruiting team is sourcing talent.
yeah.
How would you, or what advice would you give for recruiters who are looking for talent, and they may see certain indications in a CV or in a conversation? How do they become kind of gender blind? I'm not gender blind, but bias
Mm,
blind, if you can
mm,
use that as a term, and do
mm.
a more effective job of sourcing people?
Yeah. I think it's important, again, like talent acquisition and hiring teams are similar to every single human being. When they look at the picture, sometimes, pictures give you a smiley face could make you more comfortable, than
Yeah,
someone who is, has
yeah,
a more serious
yes.
features. So it's so important that talent acquisition be aware that when assessing someone, they really have to look at competencies and skills, regardless of their picture, gender, uh, nationality, because those naturally makes us stereotype people and put them into categories. And this
Mm,
is why all tools that we aspire to have in organizations now don't do not ask you about age, gender, nationality, picture, all of that, because you really want to focus on skills.
yeah, yeah,
And unfortunately, there is a tendency not only for talent acquisition, because the thing is talent acquisition are the first screeners,
step,
but then
yeah,
yeah, you go to hiring managers and the first comments you hear are like, maybe I don't know, he's old, or she just got married, or she's too young, or
yeah,
she's a female.
yeah.
So it's important that talent acquisition also not accept to be bystanders. So they
Mm.
should challenge. They should be the police, I would say, in a nice word, DNI
Put the
police.
badge on.
Put the badge on and the hat on, and play that important role.
Yeah. So that was my next step, was hiring managers, because I can bring in three, four diverse people, and I go to this hiring manager, and I may just have a sense that this hiring manager is kind of out of control, extremely biased, because in conversations things will pop up.
Yeah.
Would you advise that from a DEI strategy, from a learning and development, that we have a learning session around DEI, that we kind of talk people through that thought process of what it means for the organization?
Yes, but not only that. I think what's important is, people want to see role models.
Yes.
And again, one thing I write in my book is based on neuroscience, that by nature we tend to find people to be attracted to people who are similar to us. You
Yes.
say, this person, I feel the chemistry. He's someone who will understand me easily, someone who I'm comfortable working with because they understand my language, maybe come from the same city. Even the people who look like me, it's natural. Humans are attracted to similarities.
Yeah.
Even with creating awareness on that, it's very important that they see role models and people who have experienced working with diversity talk about the importance of that in bringing new business and in growing their business. Because reality is, and I always say, DEI, yes, is important for people, for us to be inclusive, engagement, all of that, creating sense of belonging. But then at the end of the day, also the main reason for having a diverse team is the creative ideas, the dare to disrupt ideas that would make you competitive in a tough market. You want ideas that come from diverse perspective, people who have different experiences, who could bring different perspective to the table. And only people who have experienced this could tell a positive story to others and tell them, you have to try.
Yeah. Yeah. Telling, and talking about situations that they've been exposed to and trying to educate the other side. So one of the things I noticed, and coming from New York and living in the Middle East for probably 5-6 years, I noticed the CVs are constructed in a way that just speaks of, I'm trying to check all the boxes. They'll say married, 3 kids, and all these kinds of personal things. They would list their age and all of these. And I've questioned people, why you should not do that. They said, well, I want to do that because maybe this is the type person they're looking for, someone that's married, someone that's stable. That's a cultural kind of approach for the Middle East. I've never seen it anyplace else. It's definitely not in Europe. It's definitely not in US, because in US, if you require that information, you're going to get sued as a result. So how do you, and I know we're kind of on the forefront in the Middle East and driving this, but that has to change.
It has to change. It has to change. And yes, you're right. We are far behind. Even I always make jokes because, I work globally with diverse regions. And sometimes some managers, how old is this person? And then the US team will say, we're not supposed to ask this. Exactly. Cut. We're not supposed to ask this question. But for China, for India, for Europe, it's normal. Even for Middle East, it's normal. That you ask, how old is this person? It's even in all our reports. So yes, it is a change, and even it's funny because it comes in the double sides. Employees are comfortable sharing this information,
Yeah.
and companies are comfortable asking this. Even to an extent where sometimes I get upset when I see on LinkedIn people advertising roles while writing, we want a Filipino person, or we prefer, but why? And one time I really commented on someone. I was really mean to comment on someone's post and say, seriously, like, why would someone, and it was an administrative role, by the way, not administrative role, Filipino person, required, and male.
And male. Well, I've seen one that says, Filipino, certain age group, pretty. And I'm like, who judges?
No.
Yes, I
Oh,
did.
no.
And I said, so I called it out. I said, you know what? I didn't do it online. I did, kind of a separate. And I said, you should never. Who's the judge of someone being pretty? Why would you want one nationality over another? But that's a bias that says, well, this nationality does good, whatever it is, to do that.
In hospitality. Absolutely. Those are exactly the stereotypes I keep talking about. because it's natural. These are based on experiences and things that we've seen or encountered in our lives, but doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah,
So absolutely, it's, you're right. This is something that has to change, but from both ends. Employees should start being more aware,
yeah,
because sometimes it plays in at their disadvantage, by the way. Huh? And then all the system is still based on differentiation. Housing or benefits are paid based on marital status differences. So
yes,
there is a real change that has to happen on all levels, not only from
yeah,
a acquisition perspective.
yeah. Structural. So here was a situation when I was in Saudi Arabia. Um, one of our workers' wife was a nurse, and we had this
Yeah,
conversation, and it got to around compensation. If you are a nurse, accredited nurse with all the credentials, your pay structure is based on your nationality. She was from the UK. She had a higher pay structure than the vast majority of Filipinos, which produces a lot of nurses across the globe, because that was the way that the compensation was done. So going back from a structural piece. So we said DEI has to be embedded in that. Would that be a key point, looking at our pay structure to see whether there's a bias towards
yeah.
accreditation because your nationality, and accreditation because of another nationality? So I'm saying this one is superior, even if we went to the same schools. Did you get
Ron?
that? Yeah. Are you there? Okay, let's go for a commercial break and we'll be right back. Commercial break and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Sarah Tabet. I'm the author of Inclusion Starts With You, a book intended to call for a world of inclusion for all forms of diversity. The book clarifies the term of diversity and inclusion in corporate and beyond, and explains that really the term is about promoting the uniqueness of people and embracing different perspectives, mindsets, and really make sure that everybody can move the needle on the topic of diversity and inclusion. Becoming an international author is all about promoting the message globally and beyond. The experience has been amazing, and really the sky is the limit with what you can do with the book. I could have never done this without Passionpreneur support. They have been amazing in the process, in their support, in being available at any time within the journey of publishing and even beyond. Thank you, Passionpreneur, for being there. I would have never done it without you.
Okay, we're back. Are you hearing me now?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. So let's go back to what I was saying before we had that technical mix up there. Compensation levels based on nationality, uh, and we're paying one sector higher than another sector just because of the fact that they are of a different nationality. So when you talked about the talent management framework and connecting all those points into D&I, should compensation definitely be looked at? And I'll say this from the Middle East because we know this happens all the time in the Middle East.
This is totally unacceptable, Ron. Yes, it's true, it exists, and I would say 90% of organizations still do it. But this is definitely a point that has to be tackled, because we do differentiate between nationalities on pay. I don't understand why. I understand the logic of bringing someone from a lower currency countries. It's easier. But reality is, when they're doing exactly the same job, why are we differentiating? Why are we differentiating between man, woman, married, single? And this is where the rewards and compensation schemes and models have to really change. Even to an extent when, forget nationality, forget there's a differentiation between people who come from different companies, and this is something I also wrote in my book. We tend to ask 99% of times, we tend to ask, as HR leaders, as hiring managers, as even recruitment companies, what is your current package? And based on that, I would add 20% and say, okay, this person's gonna be happy with 20% more than his current job. I attract him, he's super happy. And then someone else who's doing the same job but is currently being paid 50% more, I also add another 20% and say, okay, and I hire them both. Both of them are happy at the beginning, and once they are onboarded and people talk, of course, and it's their right, they would understand that this person is actually double paid because of historical reasons. So why do we put people at a disadvantage? If they were underpaid once in their lifetime, they will keep being underpaid all their life.
Yes.
It's so unfair.
Yeah.
It's so unfair.
Yeah, it's so unfair. But you know what? That's going to be a tough one to tackle. And I know from my experience in Saudi, and my experience not only that, but even after I moved to Dubai, it would be a huge compensation shift to make those changes. So would you suggest we change the entire structure all at once, or do we begin a more fair approach of bringing someone in compensation-wise, and we're looking at experience, skills levels, degrees, or whatever it is, and whatever that is, we're paying market rates for that, and eventually the others will catch up? Talk to me.
It takes time, but it can happen. It's similar to gender equity. Gender equity is a topic that has started to become on board more and more, more and more popular in organizations. You cannot change everything at one. You need the budgets. So you make a journey. You create a transformation over 3 years, and you say every man and woman doing the same job with similar performance and seniority have to be paid equally.
Yes.
And then you do the change over 2-3 years. Eventually, you'll get there. So the starting point is easy. I come from a compensations and benefits background, and for me, it's very simple. For me, whenever we say we want to hire a headcount, regardless of what it is, who is going to assume that role, a headcount we budget for that headcount between a range of X and Y. Now, the person would be paid between X and Y based on his seniority levels. Okay, seniority can play, and performance, of course. Now, when you bring someone, it's so easy. You hire someone, or you're interviewing someone, or several people. You just close your eyes and say, if I like the person, their skills, I'm going to pay them. I'm going to pay them exactly what I budgeted for. And that's the range I play with. I don't care what their nationality, gender, marital status or not. It's easy.
Yeah, it's easy for us to talk about when you look at an organization that's been embedded with a methodology for X amount of years. It's kind of hard to change that. But I say, you mentioned this earlier, the CEO leadership team is going to play a huge role in doing that. It's not an HR piece. It's a collaborative approach across the entire organization. So if you're going to spout all these DEI kind of things, all the areas that that's out of line, tackle those first. I would think from my side.
Yeah. And Ron, the funny thing is, and the funny and sad at the same time, is that we don't have a choice. Why we don't have a choice? We don't have a choice because people, our next generation, our current generation entering the workforce, will never accept to work for you as an organization if you don't make your basics right. They will never accept to be paid more or less than their equivalent peer. They will never accept to work for you if you don't have flexible working hours or accommodate for their family considerations. So if you really want to be a player in the next 10 years in this workforce, workplace, you have to make these changes. You don't have the choice.
Okay, CEOs, senior leaders, that's the business case. She just laid it out to you. It's
and even further, I'll tell you, even further. There was a very nice article I read recently about a Generation Z fresh grad who wrote a letter to the CEO of a company saying he did an internship in that company, and he wrote a letter saying, "My friend CEO, thank you for the opportunity for me to work for you, but you know what? I'm not gonna work. I did my internship, but I'm never gonna accept to be an employee if in your organization, because you do changes on DE&I because you think it's a great strategy for building the business and the bottom line. But reality is, I want you to do it because you think it's good for you. I want you to do it because it's important for me, not because it only makes you profits."
Yeah. So DEI, not for the business, but for the human side of connecting with people.
Yes. Because it matters to me as a generation that it matters to me that an organization accepts me for my differences, will give me the space to raise my voice and say, I have an idea that is disruptive, that that could be creative, and I want the flexibility, all of what diversity and inclusion, respect for my differences regardless of that, so which is incorporated in the policies and behaviors, blah blah. So I don't want you to do it because it only impacts your bottom line and it brings you more profit. I want you to do it because it's important for me.
So I had someone mention to me in a session I was conducting, she said that I'm so sick of these young people that I'm interviewing because of their sense of entitlement. So I said, give me some background to that, context to that. She said, well, in the interviews, they're asking about the organization's work-life balance and gender balance, and they're working about all these things. And she said, my thought is, just be happy you're going to have a job. And first of all, you never should be client-facing or being in recruiting to even have a mindset like that. But as you said, this is the new normal. And it's not about making a statement and showing some photos that shows a diverse group. You have to live, eat, breathe, and sleep that throughout because people can sense it.
Yeah. They can sense it. And you know what? Yes, there is a big chunk of the population who is going to be happy to have a job. Yeah, they don't care. They just should be, feel that they're okay to have a job. But this is not the talent that you will fight for as an organization. This is not the talent that will make your organization compete in tough environments. The talent that you want is a high-performing talent that you actually have nowadays. It's actually them interviewing us and not us as HR and hiring manager interviewing them. Story has changed.
Yeah, I call.
You have to tell them why they should work for you because you're a great organization. And this is the talent that you want in your organization. This is the best talent that will make your company.
I tell organizations all the time, I say, you know what? The pendulum has swung. It's in their favor. So it's not you sitting on this big hill and you're interviewing people to see who decides to come in the door. These people are interviewing to say, do I even want to be associated with you?
Yes.
And I'm so happy for that approach, because a lot of people have been downplayed or not giving opportunities. And a lot of people have decided that I would never want to be associated with a company that would do these kinds of things. So I always tell people the policies that you create, there's a value that goes out to the work, goes out into the workplace that is evaluating how well you're handling certain things. A news headline shows you laid off 5,000 people or whatever it is. It's going to have an effect. It's the days of doing those things and no repercussions are totally over.
Yes. Yeah. They're totally over. So the whole workplace models and frameworks have changed, and we need to accept it. Otherwise, we're not gonna, we're just gonna become redundant in the coming few years. It's like sustainability, the topic of sustainability goes hand in hand with DEI. You see it at the forefront of organizations. All organizations want to be green. Why? Because the newest generation, and not only the newest generation, everyone wants to work with a company that makes positive impact in life. You don't want to create, you don't want to be an employee in a company that creates pollution, that kills the environment, or, you know, is impacting. Yeah, you don't want to
Yeah.
work for them anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want that stain on you when you were out in the dinner party. So who do you work for? I work for XYZ. Oh my God. Did you hear what they just and this is the kind I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy for the workforce. I think it's healthy for and having an impact on the societal approach. You know, so when I say the pendulum has swung, at one time you go to a company and they talk about their shareholders and their customers. And if they mentioned employees, it was the last rung on the totem pole. Smarter companies now is changing that messaging and saying the three P's, I think they call it people, planet, and profit. But people, planet, people, and profit was the last one. If we do all the others, we can achieve the profit side of doing that. So I want to ask you one question as we begin to close out, because I know you've got something coming. You've got another session coming up. If you could have an audience with a C-suite board, what would be three things that you would advise them on putting together an impactful DEI strategy? Three key points.
I would tell them focus on policies, behaviors, and mindset. It's simple. I wrote it in my book because I want people to have a structured way to start their journey. Policies. Take all your policies and make an assessment. How can we make our language more inclusive? How can we make our policies more incorporating and accounting for family considerations and people's differences? How can we impact people's behaviors in the way that they hire, the way that they promote, the way, all of that? And then mindset, how can we create that inclusive culture where people feel and promote inclusive behavior? Their mindset changes in a way that they are aware of their own biases, they are aware and challenge and say, yes, I am biased, but then how can I change? And this is where, so it's really, if they start with these three, then of course this could be an amazing starting point. And then Ron, ask people what they want, because sometimes as business leaders, C-levels, HR, we tend to come up with great ideas, but actually people don't really care about these, super duper ideas that we come up with.
Yeah.
Ask people what they want, what is important for them, because again, it's not same for everybody. People are different and they want different things. So listen to them and then decide, what can I do as an organization that would resonate with my workforce?
Okay, cool. You know, I was laughing when you said that. I call it designing by conference room. So you get the big shots going to a room and they make a decision expecting 5,000 people, and they never ask 5,000 people or a portion of 5,000 to get a sense of what they would, what does a new world of work look like post-COVID? But meanwhile, you can design a policy and you got no input. And that's kind of that's the first principle of design thinking, is you go to the audience that's impacted, that's going to be impacted, and you get their ideas.
Yes, it's true. And that's the beauty of, beauty of being in HR for the past 15 years. Because when I tell you, and what I've written in the book is not research. It's not something that you find in Deloitte or Ernst & Young or Josh Bersin, because these companies have a job to do analysis. And so what I wanted to put in the book is examples of real life examples I have encountered as an HR professional that give you the business case of why you should invest in DE&I. Being in HR, you see this every day. You listen to people's needs.
Yeah. Sarah, thank you so much for accommodating us today. And as I said, I know you have something coming up. So thank you for squeezing us in. Just hold on for a minute and I'll come back as soon as we close out. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.